Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
We're diving into a principle that, it goes way beyond just religion or finance. It's this fundamental idea of sowing and reaping.
Right. It's universal.
But what happens when you sow and you keep sowing and the harvest just takes forever? We're talking about spiritual investment, persistent effort, all of that.
And that feeling, that anxiety about the waiting, that is the absolute core of our source material today.
Okay, so what are we looking at?
We've been analyzing a devotional framework that's built on 2 Corinthians 9:6-15. It was shared by Pastor Huji Kong, and it's called Waiting for the Harvest.
And that foundational verse is so potent, isn't it?
It really is. Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously.
So for this deep dive, we really want to figure out how that idea of generosity applies to more than just, your bank account.
To time, to effort, to skill.
Exactly. We want to know what you gain when the effort is immediate, but the results, the visible results, they're just nowhere in sight.
So the pastor starts with a really relatable analogy.
The farmer.
The farmer. You're out in the field, you're working hard, you can feel the immediate benefits, right? The physical work, that sense of purpose.
Yeah, you feel productive.
But the actual crop, the harvest.
It's months away. You're just waiting and probably getting a little anxious.
That gap, that period between the effort and the actual outcome, that's where most people get discouraged. Or they just quit.
Right.
But the source material gives us a kind of spiritual safety net here. It argues that when you're giving, and it's rooted in grace, the giver immediately starts to get a personal harvest.
Okay, so not external wealth.
No, not at all. It's an internal richness, an abundance, or feng zhu as it's called in the source, something that shapes your character.
So if I'm getting this, the act of generous sowing has its own built-in benefit.
A character-based benefit.
That you get instantly, long before any external result shows up.
Exactly. And that just reframes the entire idea of return on investment, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Right. And this personal abundance, it's not meant to be static. This is the dual impact part.
Okay.
That internal richness, it inevitably benefits other people, sometimes without the giver even knowing. And when those people benefit, the source says they give thanks back to God.
So it creates this continuous loop.
A loop of blessing that goes way beyond the initial act of giving.
This is where it gets really interesting for me, because it totally challenges how we think about modern charity or philanthropy. The source is very clear that the givers are not giving to the institution or the leaders.
Precisely. They are just a channel, a conduit.
I like that.
Yeah, think of it less like a container, like a vault you put money in.
And more like a pipeline.
Exactly, a high-speed cable. The resources are meant to flow through you to satisfy the needs of others. And if the channel tries to stop the flow or take all the credit,
it stops working.
It ceases to function as it's intended.
If we connect this to the idea of sufficiency, this just flips the script. Well, in the secular world, being sufficient, having enough, that's the end goal, right?
Yeah.
I want enough to feel secure.
But this framework suggests that God makes us sufficient or gives us enough for a very specific reason.
Which is?
So that we can turn around and give more. Sufficiency isn't the finish line for your own security. It's the starting line for generosity.
So if you realize you have enough, the only logical next step is to participate in that flow.
Instead of just protecting the surplus, it changes the entire definition of wealth.
Okay, but that does raise a tough question. It's one thing to say we should operate from this place of abundance, but how do you keep that joyful attitude when the costs, personal or financial, are genuinely high?
Well, that's where the source introduces the concept of the grace offering.
A grace offering.
Yeah. It's a type of contribution that is, by its nature, joyful. And paradoxically, the act of giving it actually creates more joy for the giver.
It's a feedback loop.
A virtuous emotional feedback loop. But that joy is tied to something much deeper, a theological commitment to what it calls true stewardship.
And what does that demand?
It demands that we see all of our resources, not just, say, a 10% tithe or a specific donation.
Everything.
Everything, as ultimately belonging to God and meant for use in holy work. It's a holistic view.
So, practically speaking, for anyone listening, this means every dollar, every free hour, it's technically purposed for something beyond just yourself.
That sounds demanding.
It sounds incredibly demanding.
It is, which is why the source really emphasizes how important it is to see other people modeling this behavior. Pastor Hu Ziqiang makes a specific point about the joy he gets from seeing young Christians really holding on to these principles.
So their commitment becomes like a metric, a visible sign of their growth.
Exactly. That growth is the non-monetary harvest that leaders are looking for. It's about internal transformation, not external acquisition.
Let's pause and apply the questions the source itself poses. The first one is, when you contribute your time or your money, to what degree are you expecting clear, maybe immediate results?
And that's where we have to be honest with ourselves, right? Because we're all conditioned to want that immediate feedback.
We want the progress bar to move.
Yeah, the thank you, the recognition.
Yeah.
And the second question follows right from that. What kind of harvest do people generally see from their contributions?
And the answer is usually not much. At least not in the short term.
Especially if the work is deep and systemic.
And that really sets up this critical conflict. Because if our expectations are purely transactional, we start to confuse genuine service with commerce.
Let's talk about that. That stark contrast the source makes between business behavior and serving God, which it calls holy work.
What's the dividing line there?
It's the basis of the engagement. In a commercial model, money solves problems. You hire a consultant, they fix your issue, the transaction's done.
Right. Contractual.
Holy work, on the other hand, requires participation that's based on faith. The commitment comes from belief, not a contract.
The source gives some pretty clear examples from a church setting, like volunteer choir members or hospitality staff.
They dedicate their time and skill without charging the church. They see it as holy work. And that's contrasted with the paid contractual positions like pastors or admin staff who are compensated for their work.
Okay, but doesn't that create a bit of a tension? I mean, are we saying the work of the paid admin staff is somehow less holy than the volunteer choir member?
That's a great question.
It seems to devalue these really essential, complex roles that keep the whole thing running.
And I don't think the source intends to devalue those roles at all. It's more about highlighting the motivation of the volunteer. The volunteer is the purest example of sowing without expecting a monetary return.
So their action defines what faith-based effort looks like.
Precisely. Both roles are essential, but the volunteer sets that standard for a purely non-transactional commitment.
And that kind of commitment gets tested the most when resources are scarce.
It does, and the source gives a really specific and I think moving example of a church that's doing difficult work in the digital space.
Tell us about it.
It's a case study from Beipu Church. It's in a rural area, so it might not have the big budgets or, the technical resources of a metropolitan church.
Yeah.
But despite that, over 6 months ago, they launched a YouTube channel. It's called The Gospel Big Refrigerator.
6 months is a long time in the digital world. That's a huge commitment. And the source points out that the volunteers, they call them AI service workers.
They're participating in video production on weekends, on holidays.
Wow.
They're purely motivated by this mission to serve God and their community. That is the definition of glorious persistence in action.
They're choosing service over their own leisure time.
And this has a massive social impact through what the source calls intergenerational modeling.
Right, because when kids see their parents enthusiastically serving,
it acts as a direct model.
You're showing the next generation what commitment looks like, not just telling them.
Exactly. True faith, in this context, it has to move past needing thanks or praise. It requires this active, continuous paying out with action, even when it's hard.
So let's talk brass tacks. What kind of measurable results do these volunteers actually see? Because the source is brutally honest about this.
It is.
It admits that viewership, the engagement, can sometimes be in the single digits.
And that is the moment of truth for anyone sewing. That one data point is where human expectation just crashes right into reality.
From a human perspective, that's failure. You think, I put in 1,000 hours, I should get thousands of views.
Right. It's so tempting to think the effort is just ineffective, wasted.
And yet, the source maintains this, what it calls a kingdom perspective.
Yes. While the hope is always for a large harvest, a massive reach, when you sustain the effort despite those small numbers, that is what it calls glorious persistence.
So the persistence itself becomes the victory.
The joy isn't in the output metrics. It's in the participation, in the obedience of just doing the work.
Which brings us back to the question, what is the real harvest here, if it's not the view count?
It sounds like the harvest has to be internal.
Precisely. The key takeaway here is that the growth, The receiving, it often happens during the process of preparing and serving.
So the immediate harvest is for the participants themselves.
Exactly. They are the ones strengthening their faith, developing their character, just through the act of creating and persisting. They're becoming more abundant on the inside.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, the source asserts that the ultimate harvester is God.
So our job is just to persist, tend the field.
We control the effort, not the outcome. And that realization requires continuous prayer. The source closes the section by asking for prayer for the Holy Spirit to bless the work, to provide comfort. It acknowledges that the human anxiety over low numbers is real.
So we start with this really simple idea of sowing and reaping. And what we found is this profound framework for stewardship, for holy work.
Yeah.
The big takeaway isn't just about money. It's about this total commitment where the immediate external results are secondary to persistent effort and that internal growth.
And the source ends with a really practical call to action. It urges listeners to diligently organize both their secular affairs and their spiritual affairs over the weekend.
That holistic view again. You can't separate them.
You can't silo your life, no. Everything has to be approached with intentionality if you want to be truly blessed.
That's a powerful challenge. And for you, the learner, let's leave you with a final thought on this. We spent a lot of time on generosity and resources.
Yeah.
But maybe step away from the church context for just a moment.
All right. Yeah.
Think about what specific non-monetary resource you might be sowing sparingly in your own life.
Is it consistent effort on a long-term goal?
Right.
Is it patience with a difficult person in your life? Maybe it's dedicating your skills to a community project where all the groundwork is slow and invisible.
And just reflect on what delayed, character-based harvest might come from increasing that specific effort, even if the numbers, the quantifiable outcome never quite matches the work you put in. That glorious persistence, that might just be the most valuable investment you can possibly make.